I think it's kind of good that I'm feeling a bit scared and I'm a bit afraid, since the title of my presentation today is Always Afraid of Open Design. And before I start, I just want to share at least one takeaway with you today, which is if you see something that you can be useful at work for you, if you see an idea that is just there and maybe in my talk or in Jenny's talk or in somebody else's talk, and you say like, oh, I can definitely say more about this talk as well, do it. Take something and make it your own. This is why it's so great being in a conference, and this is why it's great to stay in an environment that allows us to have open conversation about open design, like today. As Justina said, my name is Emmanuela. Just don't find me on Twitter as Brassi, not as Emmanuela Damiani, which is another person that last time got a bunch of Twitter about myself. And I hope she wasn't too annoyed. And I'm working as a UX designer for Firefox, the browser by Mozilla. And I'm currently living in Berlin, where I run the Ladies That UX meetup that Jenny also talked a bit about before. And I like to, every time that I'm traveling for a conference, I always really curious to see how Firefox, the product that I'm working for, is performing. And I was really curious and happy to see that here in Poland, for desktop, Firefox has the 22% of the market share. And I guess this is a really good number, especially in a moment right now where we have one big player who is doing everything. And yes, I'm talking about Google, that with Chrome, with Google Home, with their Android phone, they're kind of dominating the market, moving really away from the spirits that we have currently at Mozilla, and that we always had. We want to have a web open for everyone, and we believe that it's only possible in an environment where you have multiple players. But actually, funny story, I was sharing this data with a colleague of mine, and he was telling me that in the past, Poland was the most active country in terms of community around Firefox and Mozilla in Europe. So I cannot see many of you, but maybe I will can. How many of you are using Firefox? Some. Well, I would really be happy if you tomorrow, but maybe not tomorrow, there is Saturday, you should not work. We want to avoid you to burn out, as we just heard in the other track. But maybe go home and try it. And I'm saying that not as somebody who's working for the product. I mean, a bit as that, but especially because I believe that the product has a lot of interesting features, not only for developer, but also for designer. And personally, I think it's great to support open source, and apparently our localization in Poland in Polish is really good. So at least go there, check out. If not, tell me, let's see how can we solve it. And enough about Firefox, or actually, no, because I want to tell you the story. And the first story is that, this talk is going to be full of stories, and I hope you're going to like some of them. And the first story that I'd like to tell you is my story. So 2 years ago, before I went to ISCONF 1 year ago as an attendee, I was working in a company builder in Berlin. And that job, unfortunately, really didn't fit me, and I was starting to feel a little bit insecure about myself. I didn't have a great time. And I decided it was time to me to move on. And I was looking, when you're looking for a job, you're going on LinkedIn, on this jobs website, and I found, spoiler, and I found an announcement by Mozilla. And yes, I got a job. Yay, I did the interview, it was great. And another takeaway here, when I applied for the job in Mozilla, I went there only for the sake of learning as much as possible. I really didn't believe that I was able to arrive until the final stage. And I guess this is the best mindset that you may have when you want to change your current position. Just go there with an open mind and think about all the things you can learn, even if you don't get a job, because sometimes you got it. And I was really curious about Mozilla, because I worked for Firefox I used Firefox for so many years before, and I actually didn't ever heard about their design process. So what did I do? As any good millennials, I went online searching for design Firefox, and what I saw on the internet, it wasn't really encouraging. Of course, like people as opinion, when you work on a product, people are going to have opinion and they're going to make article about that. And sometimes those articles can be opinionated. Sometimes your user can be really opinionated. And of course, like seeing something like that kind of scared me out. And I was like, okay, damn it, what happened 5 years ago that got those users to be so mad? And I don't know if many of you remember, actually, to be honest, I forgot that was a thing. Before, we didn't have tabs at all, and the tabs were just something that we added around, and they were located below the navigation bar, so over here. But that means that in a browser like Mozilla Firefox, that you can customize a lot, ended up having situations like this. So people were adding all the toolbars, beautiful themes with all the kind of gradients, and your tabs were like jumping according to whatever thing were happening. So, I mean, the idea of moving the tabs on top, adding a bit of personality with the render corner, maybe it wasn't too bad, right? However, this design decision made the user really mad. And of course, people were like complaining because when they was adding the add-ons, now they didn't have the toolbar, so everything was crap in here. But that's what happened. Like that's when you do design decision. Sometimes maybe you don't take the best decision. So we also put the possibility to add toolbars. But I guess that the first lessons that I learned, even before joining the work, was that your user base will always react to any design decision that you're going to make. And any decision, even the smallest, it may have a bigger impact on your user life. And this is more common than we think. I don't know how many designers, like UX designers, are in the room. Okay, we're kind of half, I guess. And I guess this happened to you as well. So somebody comes to you and it's like, hey, I really want to have a logo for a project. And even if you're a UX designer, even if you're not really a brand designer, you may say, yes, I will do that. And this is what happened to my friend Elio, who is running the open design community. He saw a tweet and somebody was asking for a logo for Apache Camel. And he made a proposal. And it's like, okay, I spent some of my free time, and I made this logo over here. What do you think? And it's an open question. It should be quite easy. And to me, it doesn't sound too bad. I mean, we can see something about the camel, quite modern. So not too bad as a job, do it for free. People reaction were really strong. I guess everybody can agree with me that when somebody starts a sentence and then say something like, but graphical talents, seriously? And of course, go there and say, I would love to get a real designer. What? What about the other dude that just make that kind of nice proposal for you? And by the way, this is how they ended up. Because Elio said, okay, this is not the right environment for having an open conversation to talk about design, so do whatever you prefer. What is really interesting when you talk about open design and design is the design process in general, right? Before we saw Jenny's process, which was pretty linear, but then this process may not apply all the time, especially for design. It's critical the moment where you met with all the stakeholders and they're going to take a decision. So this is the problem that we have when we talk about design. And what is the process to apply? Who's going to take the decision? And when we are in an open design community, it's even more complicated because how can we do that? How we're going to be to decide that we have one dictator, who is maybe the person who started the community, that's going to take all the decision. We're going to do dot voting, a survey on Twitter with the rest of the global community. There are all things that may happen, but it also can mean that a designer may end up a bit burnout, not really happy about how things are going. And it seems easier with code, right? A lot of open source projects are actually a lot of open source projects are actually based on code, are based on community that they met on GitHub and other platforms. They discuss, they send a patch, and it's done. And the reason why I think it seems easier with code is because code is quite mathematical. You do something, you may write your code, it's going to work or not. If you want to have a button that send a form, if you send a form, fine. If it's going to break after 10 users, it's still fine. Maybe we just need for nine users to use it. So we had this kind of immediate feedback that we miss with design. And indeed, working in the open requires some extra work. And for this work, I would like to give you not really a framework, but more like 3 pillars where we can find some stability when we talk about open design. So the first point is resources. And I'm going to define the resources as something that enables the community to reuse what already exists. And of course, for me, design system as a designer is the answer to everything. And I like to define the design system as a product serving other products. And I'm here usually ask how many companies use a design system or partner library or whatever you see there. So if you use it, you know how hard it is. But it's actually, in theory, will help us to make the right choice, the easiest choice. So people, instead of going there and inventing the wheel over and over for problems that are easy to be solved, they can just find a solution in the design system. And for me, the design system is not really about consistency, it's more about creating a cohesive experience. And why it helps us to make the right decision, the easiest decision, is because it's a language. And being a language is something that we both speak, me and the developer, me and the product manager, and ideally, me and the community. And for this reason, it increases collaboration. When we all speak the same language, we can be way faster. I guess even right now at the conference that we need to speak like different languages, switching from Polish to English, to Italian to English. We have this bit of friction, but it's still fine because our English may be broken or not, but we still understand each other. And for this reason, in Firefox, we created the photon design system. This was actually the project that I worked mostly on last year. And I was so amazed to see the answer, not by our internal developer, but actually by our community of developers. And we also create other tools, like a website where they can download icon. And this is nothing new, right? This is something that we see with material, that we see with other design systems. But it's a great way to create a shared language, to give resources to people so that they may be able to create something new. And my friend Stubia, who is an interaction designer on a GNOME project, is currently helping them, and he underlined how for him, being also remote, it's easy that to go on GitLab and find all the need info that they are like needs design, and they're here, and he can go there, and thanks to the design system, he can spend only a few minutes to sketch a solution instead of creating a pixel-perfect design, because all the developers are aligned with the design system. They're going to recognize the same pattern. They're going to recognize that that is a primary button, and it's going to save time, which is pretty crucial when we are going to talk about open project and in open design, because those are made on people's free time. The second pillar is indeed tool. And the tools are the things that enable the community to create new things. So while the resources actually enable user to reuse what is already there, the tools give us to the people the opportunity to expand the universe. And for in this area, I really would like to focus on design tokens. And design tokens are the design decision made as small as possible. And I always use this example, and I hope you didn't see it already. So we have a design decision. Let's say color. We know what is our color palette, and we're going to create a JSON file with all the color declaration. And from this declaration, we're going to create a different script in order to have CSS variable, SAS variable, XML, because in our case, Firefox is also on Android, it's also on iOS. And then, why not? Like, I mean, we already have the information, so let's just export them as a sketch color palette, as a keynote color palette, so that I don't have to go all the time looking at the documentation website, find the color, and insert that. It's already in my tools. And then, for developer can be really important, I don't know, from the CSS variables, generate the modules that are going to feed all the website. And since we started with the easiest feed possible, in this case a JSON file, it's going to be really easy to cover the next hot thing, but also for a developer or a designer come in here and say like, oh, you know what, I'm working on GIMP, and I don't see any GIMP color palette. I'm going to either ask for help, so please, can somebody create a script to generate a GIMP color palette, or generate it by my own. And I think this is pretty awesome, because it allows people, as I said before, to create new things based on a solid foundation. And this is how it looks like. So we have the JSON file with all the declaration in the code, in the browser, in NPM. But you may think that it's just code, but it's not just code, because as we said before, with code, everything seems quite easier. But we can do it also with other things. So before we look at the icons, so what if somebody needs to create an icons for an extension that wants to fit Firefox, the look and feel, or you open a project. What we did here is to create some icons template for Illustrator and Sketch that just people can download, so that they know that by following those guidelines, they can create their own, and it's going to feel familiar in our ecosystem. And the internet is full of open source design resources. Even a website like the Noom project, right, where we have all those amazing creators creating icons for us to put in presentation. And it's great. So if you use the Noom project for free, please don't take off the recognition and pay the $1 if it's possible for you. Because those people are really investing their free time to have resources for you and for me as well. And the third pillar are the platforms. And this is a topic that is really close to my heart, because platforms help to facilitate conversation between you and the community. And as a user experience designer, there is nothing that I like / I fear more than talk with our users. And I want to tell you the story of add-ons. So add-ons is currently my main team. I'm still working on design system, but I spend most of my time on add-ons. What are add-ons? Are just some small thing that you can add to the browser as an extension, or a theme for your browser that can really push the limit of the browser by teaching it some tricks. And when I started to work on add-ons, they were just coming from this transition from what we call a legacy add-ons to web extension. Web extension is the language that Chrome adopted when they started to support extension, and it became immediately quite popular. We guess because the legacy add-ons language was a bit too technical. The web extension is based on API, so it was really easy for people to go there and engage. And this is great. That's why we decided also to say, okay, we're going to drop the support of of add-ons so that we can support web extension and actually help a web extension to become an open format. So instead of having all the API started with Chrome dot name of the API, we're going to have browser dot name of the API. And of course, also all the other vendors like Internet Explorer and Opera were like really happy about this part. So we had some developers are happy, we are happy, our competitors are happy, but what about our community? They weren't really happy. They were talking about the private dam of freedom, and it's going to be a self-suicide. Or sometimes your community can be really dramatic. And they're always going to put you in a position that are going to say, if you're doing this, I'm going to leave. But I want to put myself in the shoes of our community member for a second. Why they're being so dramatic? Why they're overreacting? Because they feel a close connection with the product. They feel a close connection with Firefox, so they don't want the status quo to change. But what happened when the status quo changed for the best for the rest of the user? Those are all the responses. Actually, not all, because the screen was too long and I wasn't able to put in Keynote and animated, that we gave to people. And they wrote a lot of comment. But as you see, Jorge, he is a colleague of mine. We always replied to them. Why? Because as we hear over and over, actually communication is the key. And we should be able to communicate. And for doing this, we also need, guess what? Tools in the determined platform. And I just discovered this, and I just added to the slide. So pardon me if it's not perfect. But this wheel can actually help us to express our feeling and also to understand what are the feeling on our user and what are communicated with us. What kind of word are they using? They're skeptical, so maybe they're going to be critical with us. And in the end, what is the main emotion? Is they're angry or are they sad? And this is maybe used for read the comment, but also for write the comment. What kind of message we want to give to them? Peaceful, we want to increase our trust. So be aware of the words that they were using. It's really important. And I found this resource really great. That's why I'm sharing it with you. And another way is, of course, like reply to them, but also tell positive story. We started this Firefox Quantum extension challenge. This happened when we actually finished to support web extension and we dropped the support to the legacy add-ons. And we wanted to create something that was fun. We wanted to encourage people to look at this and say, look, we have something cool that you can play with. Don't think about the past, let's think about the future. And the contest ended, and we had 3 amazing winners. And those people actually created something that wasn't available before just because we create a platform, in this case a website with a challenge, and we empower them. We say, we have the API, we have the spec, please do something. And this you may think that it may sound like, I don't know, maybe trivial, but it's great to see people that before were like really sad and mad, suddenly turning into creative people, ready to produce new things. So what are those platforms? We already saw, I don't know, blogs and websites in general, but we also have backtrackers and social networks. Those are all places where we can interact with our community of users. And especially if you work for an open source project, GitHub is a great place where you can interact with them through the issue. And you need also to remember that not all your users are part of your community. And here I will tell you another stories that happened to me like a month ago, more or less. So there was this user. This user is an extension developer, and he was asking in our tool, Bugzilla, to be able to disable the ESC key to close the door hanger, because he didn't want the user to close the door hanger for his extension. And I thought about that, and so you can see people engage with him, we had conversation, And in the end, I decide that actually allow this behavior was not good for all the people. It was maybe good for him as a member of our community, but what about the rest of our users? What about the user that can only use keyboard navigation? So for this reason, actually, we decided to not follow because design decision denied. And believe me, this wasn't, and it's never easy. It's never easy when you're there and you see this tag and you need to go to someone that is actually engaging with you and say, I'm sorry, this is not possible. But because we know that we have a silent majority of people, and this is not the only person that we are going to engage with, we realize that all people can join your community, can be part of the community. And another place where we actually engage a lot is Reddit. And in Reddit, it was really interesting to listen to them when, in November, we released the new Firefox with marketing renamed Quantum. And this was like a full project. We did a full redesign. So, of course, being my first big redesign in Firefox, I was pretty scared to going to see some comments like the one that I showed you before. And guess what? The first lesson, right? Whatever you do, they're going to have a reaction on the internet. So this person literally ate everything about it. Funny story, this person tweeted like 2 hours after we released, so great, you know, after 2 hours I already saw everything, and he already ate it. Or, remember before people complaining about the rounded tabs? And these people arrive here, say like, square, they're really disturbing me. So I don't know, maybe it can be one of you, maybe somebody who's going to see this talk, I really don't know, but if it's you, don't worry, because as you can see in Chrome Canary, they're introducing curve tabs. I don't know if you can see, but this is actually curve, and it's going to be beautiful when you have all the tabs open on Chrome. So if you're missing the curve tabs, don't worry, you can switch to Chrome. And except for those users, we also have a lot of people that really, really engage with that in a positive way. Actually, people that decide after years to switch into Firefox again, because they like the new design, they like the new oh my God. They like the new product, basically. And that's great. Because receiving this positive feedback really make you feel aware and of what's happening and not focusing just on the negative one. So this talk opened with a question, and I want to end with a question like, I am still afraid of open design. Yes, and it's good. It's good to be afraid. It's really give you adrenaline. It's really give you the energy to go there and sometimes confront our user. And yes, they're going to reply to you, sometimes being really, really mean. And they're going not to understand the point of view that, hey, even if you're a really loyal user, there are a lot of people here that may beneficial of a decision denied tag. So thank you, everyone, for having me today.